What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Hardworking Happy Hour. I'm Sean.
And I'm Catherine, and as always, we will be breaking down all things trades, entrepreneurship, and turning your creativity into a passion career.
Oh, yeah, and we have so much to update our listeners on because we're not in the van in this episode.
Not in the van.
We're not even in New Jersey. We're in Orlando, Florida, at the International Builder Show, and we also have our very first guest on the podcast.
I'm guest number one.
You are guest
number one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Guest number one. We're in Orlando. It's not even Friday, right? Isn't this a Friday thing?
This is usually, and it's we didn't even. It's also Wednesday. It's Wednesday, so everything is just. I mean, it's going to be a fantastic episode. I'm very excited. We prepared a short list of like 300 ideal candidates, and you were number one, and we got our number one on the show. So we're very excited, and we're gonna.
You got to introduce him.
Oh, well, I thought everybody kind of just knew him. So we have Chris Breen here from Legacy Decks, South Carolina, and he's built an amazing business, and he really brings to the table, no pun intended, that
not to the van, to the table.
To the table this time, a lot of things around leadership and building a company that can run without you, which is really way outside of my skill set. So we had to bring in a professional to give everybody out there some advice on, you know, how you can be a better leader, how you can empower your team, and how you can really build systems in your business so that, you know, it runs without you. But before we get to that.
Oh, yeah, we should talk about what we're drinking first.
Yeah. And
this was your week, and I technically took the reins on this situation. But
you did. Yeah, you did.
It was almost Water Wednesday.
It was. Yeah.
Crisis averted. We did eventually get drinks.
Yeah, and we got a selection of some beers here. We are not in our normal location, so it would be difficult to make some custom cocktails. But Catherine, with some very good on the move MacGyver type of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Uber Eats delivered us some beer in Florida. Anything goes down here. It's crazy.
It's from 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could get beers at 7-Eleven.
Yeah, and then get them delivered to you. Did they check your ID or anything?
They did check my. Well, he took a picture
really?
of my ID.
Well, that would be so annoying if like he delivers it and it's like, oh, you're not 21. I can't give this to you. I have to take it back. Like, what do you do? Or maybe he just gets to keep it.
How did you even think to go the Uber Eats route? Like,
I knew I had to get a drink here, and I was like, I'm gonna make this happen.
Make it happen.
And we can't Uber. Can you Uber Eats?
Yeah.
Alcohol?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I have no idea. I've never tried it.
Well, yeah, maybe you should go home and try.
A whole new world of things is opening up for me.
I had heard that there are places that you could do it, so luckily it worked out.
Yeah, and we're really excited because, like I said, you're gonna be able to bring some expertise, some insight, and some advice for people that I'm genuinely interested in as well, because you've sort of built a business almost opposite of what we've done. You have
I hope that's a good thing.
You have professed that you don't have a place at your company anymore. You have, systemized your way out of your own business by empowering your team, by just creating this system that runs without you. So I want to give a little bit of a brief summary of how you got to where you're at and where you're at now and where you're looking to go.
Sure. So, well, to speak specifically to that idea of not having a job anymore, like I found myself like 4 or 5 months ago in a place where like everything was running and I didn't have to be there to make it happen, right? And so that in itself is a weird thing. Like imagine if you, Sean, tomorrow came into work and like somebody else was doing your job. Like how would that make you feel?
I would feel insignificant, and I feel like sometimes I intentionally withhold information from people so that they need me.
I still have a place in the company.
Exactly.
Right? Like there's like this hero thing that comes about with like being the guy that, solves the problem or saves the day or makes something happen. And so it sounds really cool. And ultimately I think like that's when you're looking at building a thing, an organization, becoming an entrepreneur, like all of us really, I think in the back of our mind are like, how can I make all the money and not have to do all of the work? Like, what does that look like? And then I actually got there, like not even intentionally, I guess, you know, just unintentionally, I got to that place, and it was really a weird place. Like I almost was like almost in, I don't want to say in a depressed state, but it was like, what do I do now? But because of like the nature of like an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
So like, what's the next thing that I'm going to create? So you think you get there and it's like, oh, I've got the money, and not to say that I've got the money, like I've figured out how to make money, and I've got
You're
a
an
team.
extremely successful deck builder. I mean, we're not sitting with Jeff Bezos, but in the deck world, you have built an incredible business, and you know.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's funny is like, to go back to your question about like where I came from and how all that came about, like nobody knows who I am. Like my customers don't know who I am. Some of my subcontractors don't even know who I am. And that's a weird thing for me too, because to go back to like where I came from, I started my first real company, we'll call it, in like 2003. And my wife's not here to contradict any of this stuff. So anything I say is 100% true. And she'll correct it later after she watches this. But so 2003, I started it. And just like everybody else, you know, you're wearing all the hats. You're selling, you're designing, you're building, you're pulling permits, you're ordering material, you're dealing with unhappy customers, you're dealing with warranties, like doing all the things. And that was my job, you know, from 2003 till 2009. I'm sorry, 2003 to 2013 with my first company. I never could figure out like how to get out of wearing all of the hats, and I just got to this place of like burnout. And so I wasn't able to do, like you talk about me having certain skills that you don't. The reality is like you have skills that I don't very early on. Like I'm 44 years old, you're not 44 years old.
33.
Right.
33.
And you figured some stuff out already, like adding Catherine to the team. Like that's an amazing thing. You've delegated and brought on someone to help support in areas where you recognized, well, when I was your age, I was still like literally doing all the things and couldn't figure out how to make that work. So that was like the first big adventure that I had for almost 10 years. Wearing all the hats, doing all the things. My wife was a big part of that. She did financials and all those things. But it was not a very fun place to be. I got burned out to the point where it was just, even though we were having a lot of success, had a really great reputation. Like we built a neat brand. Like a lot of people would look at our brand and like, are you a franchise? You know, and to me that's almost like a compliment that we obviously look like something that we're not. You know, we're not a franchise. We're just like this little thing working out of my basement in my house. You know? So, I mean, we eventually had an office and all that, but fast forward, you know, to where I just built my current company for the last 6 years, never swung a hammer, did very little sales. Like I brought people onto the team really early on. And I think that goes back to kind of what we're going to talk about today a little bit, is like leadership and some of the things that I did drastically different in version 2 from version 1.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, so many people are in that situation where they're in the craziness of the business. They're wearing all the hats. They're doing everything. They want to get to a place where they're removed from the business and they've created something that can run on its own, that's self-sustaining. What's interesting about your journey is you were kind of in that spot. You built it up to a point where you sold the business. You took a little bit of break, and you know you were doing a lot of different things, and then you came back to it, and you know it was almost like this thing had an end, this thing had a beginning, and with that time off in between, do you think that was a huge catalyst to, you know, just let you shift your mindset as far as how you're going to do this new thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of went on a journey in the like 2 to 3 year period between, you know, selling the one and starting the other, where I just started to look at like what are other entrepreneurs in, even not even in my space, but other entrepreneurs that are having success, like what are they doing that I'm not doing, and like how can I model that with what I'm going to do next? And the reality is, I did not want to get back into construction. Like I went kicking and screaming. Like I would have never sold my first business. I say this all the time. If I would have known, I was going to end up doing the same thing again, right? Because like how hard is it to go back to ground zero and start over? And so, but my wife was super excited about, you know, getting back into it and, you know, developing that new brand and rebuilding what we had done. But like the only way I was even willing to consider doing it is if we did it differently. So it was almost like a decision, like, hey, we can't do it this way. way because I'm not going to do all those things. I want to enjoy my life. And so really it was ultimately started with just like a decision. And then we kind of figured out, who do we have to learn from? What do we have to, what skills do I lack that I need to gain to be able to do it differently? And so that was kind of the starting point to like where my mindset was at. It was just a shift in that, like, we're going to do it differently or else we're not going to do it at all. So.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So getting into leadership and building a team, because in that scenario where you're not going to be swinging a hammer at all, you're gonna start the company from day one and be removed from it. What's the most important part, like when you're just getting started, to empower somebody to, kind of do things on their own? Do you give them a long leash and let them have those failures that you might have foreseen ahead of time, but as soon as you get in and move them away from that thing that they're going to fail at, then you're hands-on, you're micromanaging them? Or do you kind of let them go and you see, they might stumble here, but I'm going to let them do that, see how they react? Like, what is that process like?
Sure. So yeah, I basically, after I go through the whole recruiting and hiring and they get onboarded, I leave them alone for like 90 days. Don't even talk to them and just see how much success they can have. And then, no, I'm just kidding. I don't do that. So
I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's
yeah.
a novel
I
idea.
give them a really long leash and see if they, no.
I'll come work for you for 90 days. Sounds like a 90-day vacation.
Right. No, I think a lot of it, and when you talk about leadership, like for me, the way that I lead, and this may not be right, but like I lead from a place of like, I've done all of the things, like the things that I'm asking you to do, the people that I'm hiring to do sales, the people I'm hiring to do project management, to do estimating, those things. I have done all of them and I understand them at a really high level. And so for me, it starts with just communicating to them like how to do it. The fact that I teach them personally that like I've done all of these things, I've learned how to do it, and then I lead them down that path. So there's a time where they shadow me, so I actually have them come out and work with me and do the thing that I'm asking them to do, whatever it may be. My sales guys that have been with me right now for the last 5 years had zero construction knowledge, didn't know a deck from a patio from a roof structure. Like they just didn't know anything, which was great because it was a clean slate and I could teach them how
very limited amount of knowledge.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
most people know the difference between a deck and a patio.
You wouldn't want them swinging a hammer at all anywhere near you. So
yeah,
but yeah, so it starts with that, and ultimately just a lot of communication. Clear communication. I think that one of the biggest downfalls to hiring people a lot of times is just the fact that they don't know what's expected of them, and so that kind of is where it all starts, I guess.
Yeah, I just think it's so fascinating that you've kind of done both of those routes, and there's such, I think. Do you think it was a big benefit to have that break and stop one, start the other? Because I think a really hard part for a lot of people is like that transition from, okay, right now I am wearing all the hats. Like, how do I slowly pull myself out of that versus, all right, we're just going to build a business day one and I don't swing a hammer. I'm building teams. I'm not building projects, Right. So do you have any advice for somebody that's in the thick of it now and they're like, oh my God, that sounds like me. Yeah. Burnout, is that what I'm experiencing right now?
Yeah.
How do they make that transition?
Well, I've been, since I don't have a job right now, like I don't have any, I just go to work every day and see how everybody's doing. I've been doing a lot of networking and talking to other guys in the industry and just trying to figure out like what are they struggling with? What are the things that they need support in? And like, how can I support with just my experience and things? So, I think in talking to guys, the biggest thing that I've run into is like, they were like me. They don't feel like anyone else can do the things that they do. And in a lot of ways, they're probably right. Like someone else can't necessarily go out and and create the same customer experience that you can, right? Or have the same conversation that Catherine can with someone. And there might be a sale that gets lost because it wasn't Sean out there selling. And that was my struggle with my first business. And so for the guys that I'm talking to right now that are struggling with that same kind of thing, it's just being willing to relinquish a little bit of the control to allow someone to find their way. And they may not sell every job that you'll sell, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's one piece, I think, is just recognizing. I'm talking to guys right now that are selling. I have 3 salespeople right now, and the guys that I'm talking to are selling as much work as my 3 salesmen are. So, and not only that, some of these guys are doing material takeoffs and ordering material and running projects. And I'm just like, your life has to suck.
Yeah.
Like, it just probably sucks. Like, I did that and it sucked. Right. So,
and it's almost like hard to like see how stressful and difficult that is when you're in it, because like you don't have time to like sit back and be like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. You're just like, yeah, I'm feeling a little something, but I got work to do. Yeah. And I think for me, I have a huge problem with relinquishing control over something that either I enjoy, or really the things that I enjoy, that I like doing, or video editing, or, you know, stuff like that, the design. I've a huge, it's a real big problem for me to relinquish control in a lot of areas. But I find that as soon as I do, it's like, how was I previously doing all this stuff? Right. You know, it's amazing. Like, I used to do all the inquiries, all of the proposals, just everything, literally. And Catherine's taken so much of that off of my plate. And I'm like, I don't know, when did I do that stuff? Like, how did I do that? And it's almost the hardest thing is just giving up that control initially. And you know, it seems like you're so busy, I don't even have time to step back and show somebody really quickly how to do this. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't really give you much direction on, well, you're pretty adept at contracts and everything, so I didn't need to give you too much guidance. But most things that I've put on her plate and off of mine, it's like, you know, maybe the first 2 times it's like, Sean, what do you usually do for this? And I'm like, this. And she's like, okay, perfect. And like, it's such an easy, it was almost a mental block of getting it off my plate and thinking that it's going to be more stressful to try to teach somebody else how to do this than if I just do it myself. And I think that is like such a common issue with contractors and business owners, but then once you do it, it's amazing the feeling of freedom that you feel. And you almost can't even imagine life before that, when you were doing all these things. So,
right. Well, I mean, I look at your journey, and because you've, you know, publicized your entire journey, like, there was a time where Sean was doing way more than you're doing now, just different things. Yeah. Not, I don't want to say way more, but you were literally out there building every day, and you were filming, and you were editing, and you were, you know, trying to go home and be a good husband to your wife, and, you know, take care of yourself. Like, you know, you built the dojo out and all these things, right? So, but now you're to a place, and it's totally fine that you still want to handle the edit. Like, you get to pick what you want to do and do that thing really well, you know? And so, and bringing on people like Catherine, and the other people that you brought onto your team, like, the reason that you're having such success right now is because you're attracting the people to who you are and the value of your company. And so, I think it's been really cool. Like, I've done something that's cool, but you've done something that's equally as cool with what you're creating. And so there's no reason to compare. It's just two totally different things. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, because we've gone like just a very unique route, I think. And my thing has always been, I think I'm very honest about my weaknesses, and I recognize the few strengths that I have. So I've always been of the mindset, like, just don't even worry about your weaknesses at all. Hopefully, you know, now we're at a point where I've hired out some of those weaknesses, but I just want to leverage my strengths, because I think it's more powerful to focus on your strengths and make those even better than try. I mean, as hard as I try, I'm not going to be very organized. I've been trying for so long, and it doesn't get me that far. So I feel like taking that kind of stuff that needs a more organized mind, having somebody else handle that side of it, it frees me up to just, do what I'm good at, which is, I don't know, kind of like acting like a big child all day. Like that's kind of the job position I've created for myself, where I just get to play and have fun all day.
Well, I think it's hard to step back and be a witness to your own journey, right? And so I think there's a lot of things that you are a leader in inside of your organization that that you probably don't even see, but like Catherine as a witness could probably tell you like, oh, I see how you lead in this way. So I think there's
I think the only a few ways that I think I might have some leadership ability are, I think I'm good at selling the vision of where this can go. So I think you need a buy-in from everybody. You need to see if they think that it's just, all right, well, this is probably as good as it's going to get, and we're just going to ride this out till we die. I think you're going to have a hard time getting people to buy in. But if you can sell that vision, and then also just, I think I'm really good at being open and honest about everything that I'm bad at. And like when everybody on the team is like, oh, what, did you see a squirrel again and get distracted? I'm like, that's almost exactly what happened. Yeah. But it was a bird this time,
Right.
So I think being honest and I think a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, they want to feel like they are the best at every aspect and they have something to teach everybody and they're the best at it. So,
well, you hit on a good point there as far as leadership goes, not to interrupt you, but like the vision that you have, like without vision, you're not going to attract the people to your team, like your new builder, Andrew, right?
Anthony.
Well, Anthony. 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Not new, but Anthony, sorry. But like you're attracting people to the vision that you have. And like if you didn't have that vision, so if we're talking about leadership principles, like vision is a big one. Because my team personally, like they would, if they were sitting right next to me here, they would tell you like they would, if I decided tomorrow that we're going to go like sell rubber chickens, that's what we would be doing, right? Because they're not bought into like we just happen to build decks, like that's what we do, right? But the reality is, we there's no work-life balance with my team. Like the people that we work with are like they wouldn't work for me if I wouldn't be like hanging out with them having a beer after work, right? Yeah. And so the lines of like work-life balance is kind of like an overused thing, I think, but like it's kind of blurry in my organization because it's just like, work is kind of life and it's part of who we are. Like, decks are life, like, so yeah.
I think that's interesting that, first of all, to like, you're obviously really good at all these leadership qualities, but, having like a really good relationship with the people on your team, how much do you think that plays into, where the organization goes, because some people, they say, hey, I want to be the boss and, in a corporate setting or something, there's, it's more like I'm the boss and I don't want to hang out with my employees after work. Like I'm their boss. I need to say the hard things to them and say this or that. And, there's lots of big corporations that run that way that by all means are successful, I guess. But I think I lean more towards where you're at, that, I want to enjoy the people that I work with. I think that everybody that works with me feels like if anything were to happen, they could come to me and ask for anything, and I would, look out for them like family. So you're obviously on the same side as me, but what do you think about, have you ever had any issues with that, getting too close to an employee or that causing issues?
Nothing comes up right off the top of my head as like it's been an issue. I think there's kind of like a fine balance and a respect that's still there, right? Yeah. So even though I'm down in the trenches with them, and I do think we'll work out together or we'll go have beers or whatever. But like when it comes down to it, I think that I've earned the respect. It's not just because I'm their boss and I pay the bills or whatever, but like because I have been in the trenches with them, and I'm accessible to them, and I communicate with them, and we have hard conversations. Like, it's not all like rainbows and unicorns all the time, right? Like, sometimes people screw stuff up, and you got to talk about it. And so being willing to have those conversations, and there's still like that separation of like, I don't want to say boss and employee. It's more like mentor and mentee, right? Because I'm really kind of like, I don't have employees, I have entrepreneurs, right? So like my staff identifies
entrepreneurs
as entrepreneurs.
Oh,
yeah,
I like
they really
that.
are. They if there was a way.
Did you coin that?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
If I say it enough times,
You should have said yes.
Yeah.
It's totally my
impressed.
thing. So,
Yeah.
but and that's because they all have a voice. Like it's not just I don't rule with an iron fist or anything. And so that plays a big part into being able to still have that respect.
Yeah.
So no, there's not a lot of, if there is a dynamic where there's an issue with someone, they probably don't work with us very long. Like, we have a very strong filtering process. It's like, you come in and your first 90 days are kind of just an extension of your interview. And I tell everybody that, like, you're going to know and I'm going to know if this is going to work. And in 90 days, we'll talk about it again.
Yeah.
Right. But we have a really high retention rate. I mean, again, my sales guys, 5+ years. I mean, we're a 6-year-old company. I've got 2 salesmen been with me for 5 years. My project manager's been with me 3 years. And we're not a huge team. We've got like 10 of us total, I think. I've been there the whole time, luckily. So, but
worth noting that it's 10 people on the business side of it.
And then we have our
subcontractors.
Yeah, so our team, the way we're structured, is subcontractors. But they all work solely for us. But one thing that I've always, and this is to go back to some more leadership principles, is like hire slow and fire quick.
Yeah.
Like, anytime I haven't followed that rule, I've regretted it on both sides. Like, I've hired someone too quick, they definitely don't last. I've fired someone too slow. I recently didn't let someone go when I should have, and because it was easier to keep them. And that's a lot of times what people, it's like easier to keep them here as a body than to get rid of them and go through the pain of birthing a new employee, right? And so it ended up like we had a slippery day, and he slipped on some snow, and like, then there's a workers' comp claim, and then it's like, oh crap, I can't get rid of you. And I don't think he'll ever see this, but if he does, it's all right. I should have gotten rid of him quicker. No.
Oh, okay.
No, he actually resigned, funny enough, through the process of the workers' comp claim. He resigned. He's like, hey, it's apparent, like, I don't belong there. So that filtering process. So it's kind of like a forge, like you turn up the heat, and
that's how you get the hardest steel, I guess. Is that?
I don't know. Scott Kelly knows about steel, right?
Yeah.
Sounds.
I think that's where that metaphor comes from. But
yeah. So hire quick, fire slow. Like, that's a solid thing to live by. So.
You said
Hire slow, fire quick. There you
go. Yeah.
Thank you. You'll keep me straight.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's. So I don't have a lot of experience. Like, I was kind of always, I guess, an entrepreneur in some capacity, whether it was either, I don't take direction well, I guess. That's probably why. But Catherine, like, what are some of the things that, like, you've been many different people and done a lot of different things and gotten like a lot of experience in a few different industries, but I think those things like leadership are things that, might be a little bit different in each industry, but what are some of those things that, like, you feel motivated, or you feel like, okay, this is an idea that I can attach myself to and feel like I'm getting somewhere or doing something important?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if that comes with like the size of a company, because I feel like in our industry now, it's a lot of, not smaller companies, I don't want to say smaller, but more small crews, I guess. It's just physically less people, so you do have an opportunity to like really get to know people and really have people's opinions be heard and people feel listened to. And when you start working for bigger and bigger companies, you lose a part of that. So like when you said work-life balance, like I work now like way more than I did in my corporate job, but I'm 1,000 times happier. Like when I was working in an environment that I didn't enjoy, it was like, I need time off. I got to get away from this. But now I'm like, I'm excited. I love what I do. So I'm I don't even think that I'm working. Like I go home and I
And that's
keep
the
working
trick.
and I don't even think about it. So
You've tricked your employees.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's
Working
very
Doing a good
harder
job.
and loving their life more.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the secret. Yeah, you get people to just work 24/7. But yeah, I mean that's
You have a
Great
unique
to hear.
perspective.
I love
like,
hearing
really
that.
do.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just more intimate, like, because I don't want to say small or intimate because it's not. These are big companies that people work for, and big, like
even
grossing,
us, we have big visions.
and we have big visions.
Small
yeah,
company, big impact.
World
Something.
domination.
but like physically bigger companies is what I mean. It like you
Yeah, like
lose
Larger
sight
people,
of it.
or
That
that
depends.
too.
Yeah.
Andrew looks like
That
a
kind
big,
of goes
Anthony
with
looks like a
the-
big guy.
Anthony is huge.
He's really tall.
And I am looking to, in the near future, get smaller. It's something I need to work on.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that there's so much value in like, and I feel like in like a corporate sense, if you say like, oh, we're all family, that's like kind of toxic. But in like a more smaller crew version, it's like, oh, like, no, I do feel like I can go to
all
Sean and
family,
I can, talk to him if I need to, or Anthony, bless his heart, he'll sit and explain something to me for like an hour if I ask any question. He's so patient with me. So I just think that like there is that family feel, and when you respect the people that you work with, you listen better. If it's in a leadership role, you're more likely to retain what you're hearing or take it under your wing, whatever that saying is, and like really listen to them rather than not feeling connected to something and then just being like, well, whatever, I'm just here to get a paycheck. I just got to get this done, or
Right.
not having pride of ownership in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what do you think about, because some people have a larger, I think it's easy if we're small to have that like, camaraderie, and we're all in this together and we're all, working towards this goal, but some people do have slightly, bigger than our company that we have together. What are some ways that you can kind of like instill that feeling of, we're all looking out for each other, we're all in this together, and not in a big corporate sense where it's just a poster on a wall, like, we're here for you, we're family.
Yeah.
Something that people really feel and really buy into.
Sure. Well, I think that the larger an organization gets, the more leaders you're going to have that tend to rise up inside of it, right? So even though we're small, we still have like departments, if you will. So I have my sales department and I have my operations department. Finance is really just my wife, and marketing is really just my wife. So but the departments that have a few people in them, there's leaders inside of that. And so how do you deal with it when you get to large organizations like that? And still have that same feel is, number one, having the same vision from the top, from Sean or, whoever is that visionary, if you will, for like, this is who we are. This is why we do it. We have fun, but we get stuff done. We're creating a legacy, legacy decks, and outdoor living.
Trademarked. Trademark.
And so, but when your leaders start to have teams, and they're going to be small teams, whatever they may be, or larger, I don't know, but those leaders have the same kind of vision, and so it's just almost like a mini pocket of a company inside of your company. So it doesn't get that complicated to do as long as you do it right from the beginning, if that makes sense. So when I started on this journey of growing from like just whatever 2 or 3 of us to to where, if you count my builders and everything, we're probably 20 plus people. We got really crystal clear on like, what's the structure for our company? Like, who is the visionary? Like, Sean, you're obviously the visionary, right?
For your company even?
No,
That's
no.
awesome.
For my
What's
company
this?
as well.
My paychecks haven't been coming through. Damn.
Yeah, I'll have to check with finance on that. So.
Yeah.
But and so we set up that structure, like who is that visionary and what are their responsibilities, and who is Catherine, you call her your Swiss Army knife, but she would probably be like your integrator. She's the one that like just gets stuff done and takes all these big ideas that you have and figures out like, how are we going to do these things? And like, did you think about this and this? Like, that would be Catherine's role, right? And then you've got Anthony is like your head of production or operations, however you want to look at it. I guess you're head of sales as well, so you're wearing multiple hats because you're the visionary, but you're also the head of design and sales, right?
Yeah.
You've got your finance person that I think is your mother-in-law, right?
Yep.
I think so. And so so that's your structure. And so getting really clear about like, where do you want to sit? Where do you currently sit in the company? When I first sat down and did this as an exercise, when we decided to grow, it was like, my wife's name's Amy. So it was like, Amy is our visionary. I'm the integrator. I'm the one that's like, strategically, how do we figure this out? We both kind of share a little bit of that role. But then you look at sales, and I was head of sales, and you look at finance, and she was head of finance. You look at operations, I was head of operations, and then marketing, she was head of marketing. So like, we were sitting in all of these seats, right? And so there was no way for us to really scale by having to do all of these things. It would be, you know, we would be the bottleneck to everything. So, but getting really clear, the step that I would say to like somebody who's looking to scale their company is like, what's the right structure first, you know, between visionary, integrator, all the different things I mentioned. Maybe you've got a head of construction, and then what are their like top 5 responsibilities? Like, what are the roles that they have to fulfill? And then slowly, it took us almost, I don't know, 2 years before we got to the place, or maybe almost 3 years, to where I didn't have a job anymore. Like, I'm still in that organizational chart as like the integrator, but I don't have any other seats that I have to sit in right now, right? And so, and that was because we started off first with like, what should it look like in 5 years? And how do we plug the right people in? How do we raise up the right people? We didn't add really a whole lot more people to our team, but we identified people within our team that could take over this responsibility. Like, we got them to work harder and more. For, you know, anyways. So does that make sense? But
yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like when you started your first company, you were doing everything like you said, and then you sold that company, and then you started this new company, and it seems like a complete mindset shift. Yeah. What was that mindset shift?
A great question. So the biggest thing for me was like, I started to listen to some other people, like I said before, that had done bigger things than me. So I found some mentors. I started listening to a lot of audio, you know, podcasts and things like that, and just really coaching myself, mentoring myself, elevating myself. So learning, when I said earlier, like, you first got to learn what you're going to lead someone through, then you've got to actually live it or do it, and then you can lead them, right? So I spent a ton of time. The mindset shift for me was just learning, like really improving myself personally as a business owner, as a, you know, as a husband, as a father, just all those things. That was the biggest mindset shift. The change from my first company to my new company was I started working on me and stopped trying to focus on like just making money and you know, working as hard as I could and trying to outwork and hustle my way to success. But in the end, like, I wasn't a very sharp axe, I guess you could say. Like, I had to sharpen my axe before I could go chop wood.
That's exactly what the saying is. Yeah.
Okay. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
That was the biggest change. So, you know, I think so many guys and gals that are building businesses are so focused on like that there's this lack of opportunity. They've got to go get as much as they can and work as hard as they can, as fast as they can, and make as much money as they can. And the reality is there's like an abundance of it out there. Like, there really is. Like, and so you just have to slow down long enough to fill in the skill set gaps that you have to get to the point where you can have that really abundant success.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any book or audiobook recommendations?
Okay, so books.
You did mention, you were like,
I wanted to ask you this yesterday, but I forgot.
So, all right, so some of my favorites, I got to plug Sean Van Dyke with Profit First for Contractors.
Great hair. Great hair on that guy.
He's got great hair.
Oh, yeah.
But he was integral in just like becoming profitable. Like, it used to be, I used to feel like, you know, you make as much money as you can, you spend what you have to do your job, pay your people and all that. And if there's any left over, that's your profit, right? Well, he teaches in his book, like, that's not really how it works. Like, you'll never have any profit because you'll just spend it all, you know, it'll just go somewhere. So I won't go into a tangent on that, but that was a big one for me. And then I really love Jocko Willink's books. So he's got the Dichotomy of Leadership and
Extreme Ownership.
Extreme Ownership. So Extreme Ownership's the one that I started with. And just the way that, have you read? Okay, so the way that he tells his stories is he'll give a war story, because he was in Afghanistan and during the Iraq War, and he'll give a war story that he then extracts a leadership principle from, and he teaches on the leadership principle, and then he's actually implemented these principles in businesses. So he'll give, like, it's like a, you know, he's a triple threat, I guess. So he'll give the war story, then the business application, and the leadership principle behind it. So it's just really easy to listen to, really good Just good content. So that's another one. And then a book by Gino Wickman, which is called Traction. And that book there is, as far as like the structure of our business and the way we operate, and that's probably the single most important thing that we've done in our business in like the last 3 or 4 years. But Traction explains like all the principles that we've implemented to create an actual business, you know, like a company. So I didn't make all this stuff up that I'm, you know, trying to communicate to you. It's like all things that I've read or listened to, but Traction is like a must read for anybody. Brian Caskey, who owns Cascade, he's a big guy on Traction too. So we got together on that and geeked out on it for a while. So
Catherine, make a note of that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to order that.
It sounds like something we could use.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
sounds like something we could definitely use.
I would regret if I didn't mention 2 more. So Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins.
Okay.
Yes, no,
Guy's
nobody.
insane.
Have you listened to it?
I follow him.
Oh my
love his
gosh.
stuff. I haven't read that.
So you can read the book, but if you listen to the Audible version, he actually has someone else read it, and then they do like a monologue between. So you actually get like added stories and content. Really good. So I would listen to it, not read it.
Okay.
And then have you heard of Jesse Itzler?
Yeah.
Okay, so he wrote a book called Living with a Seal, which basically he met David Goggins at one of his ultra marathons that he was doing, I think in Death Valley or something. He's like, I have to get this guy to come like live with me and train me. So he got him to come live with him for 30 days. It's called Living with a Seal. Yeah. And it's all the stories about Goggins living with Jesse Itzler and how he'd get him up at like, 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was, 15 degrees outside in the snow in Chicago, and we're going running, and they'd run like, 48 miles or something. And ice baths. He's like, if I come live with you, you have to do anything I say. Anytime I tell you to do it, you have to do it. He about got divorced from his wife, Sarah Blakely, from it. So, but
yeah, he's the owner of the Atlantic Hawks, right? And he's married to Sarah Blakely.
Yep, who just like had a multi-gajillion-dollar exit from partial exit. I think
that's got to like
part of it.
Yeah, I mean
Spanx. Did you saw that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, he's like super successful, and he's like. He owns a professional basketball team, and he's still like, just makes pennies compared to what she's done with her business.
Right.
It's pretty funny.
So and that goes back to like the mindset shift. Like reading and listening and all that stuff. Those are the things that I started doing that changed how I did what I'm doing now. Yeah. It's just like shifting my mindset. So
I think mindset is such a big thing, and so a couple things. Like, it sounds like you can't be necessarily a leader, because I think being a leader involves a personal relationship with somebody. So like, you can't necessarily at the top be that, leader to the person that's all the way at the bottom. You're going to be a leader to this person and empower them to become a leader to the people below them. And I think that's, kind of how you can scale that.
Sure.
Yep. It's kind of like a leadership pyramid scheme.
Yeah. I was waiting for that. Yeah. The leadership pyramid scheme. Yeah.
But I think that's kind of something I just like picked up from listening to you say about like how to become a leader. Like, you kind of have to have like that personal relationship, and a CEO of a company, in a sense, they can be, an overall leader and get people to buy into that really high picture, big picture vision for the overall organization. But on a day-to-day, you need a day-to-day leader that you look up to for whatever tasks you need to do. So that's something that I just kind of like picked up when you were talking about that. That's pretty interesting. Of, you want to create other leaders within your organization that it's going to kind of trickle down, and hopefully everybody's inspired from the ground up, and you're the one that's, has that really big overall vision, and you're leading that team right under you. And, it's that leadership pyramid scheme, but it's a good pyramid scheme.
A good pyramid scheme.
It's leadership, multi-level leadership. It's multi-level leadership.
MLL.
MLL
leadership.
Yeah. I'm going to trademark that really quick when we're done with this. The other thing that kind of sparked a thought in my mind was, people sometimes are so busy in what they're doing that they feel like they don't have time to do the thing that's going to set them up, you know, whether it's a year from now or even a month from now. And a big thing that I'm super guilty of on that in my business is the more time that I spend planning something, the more in-depth I can get and as detailed of a drawing or a schematic of every little detail that I can do, no matter how many hours I spend on that. If I spend, you know, 80 hours doing different diagrams of little details on our project, that always 100% of the time saves a lot of time on the job site. But in
This is
business,
deep. You're going deep here. I'm waiting for this to all circle back.
I don't know if it's going to.
It
but
will.
in business, I think people are so bogged down in the busyness of now that they can't even look, you know, a week ahead. Like, if I just step back and, you know, really spend the time doing this one thing, for me, it's planning things out. Like, I can always spend more time on planning, and it's always going to give us a huge return in productivity. But I feel like, we're behind on this job, so I need to get out there and help, which usually I'm just distracting people anyway. But if I just squirrel, bird, whatever. But if I spend that time planning, it's always time well spent. And I think that's what stops people from going from all the hats to no hats. It's that first step that's the hardest.
Yeah, being willing to stop. So that was a very visionary way of and the analogy that you gave of like comparing design to building a business. But you're absolutely right. So it doesn't matter whether you're a 20-person organization or a 5-person organization. Like the time that you could spend, and again, this all goes back to traction, because literally traction is kind of like the roadmap to what are the things you need to do this quarter and this year, and then how do we dial that down to like what are we going to do tomorrow and each week. So it's super important to do those things. And you're right, we don't have the time to stop and spend a day with our 5 people on the team and plan out the next quarter. But like if you did that, your quarter would be so much more productive. You would know what you're focused on. You would know what you're focused on, and you're accountable to each other. Like that's another big part of how I've created the culture that we have in our team, is because everybody has a clear target every quarter. Like this is what you're responsible to. You're responsible for your normal targets, like sales goals and production goals. But like in addition to that, like if we're going to grow this company, this is the one thing that has to happen in our sales department this quarter. And we figure that out in a 1-day meeting. It's like one day, like just take one freaking day and plan out the next quarter, right? And then every week we just have a touch point where it's like, okay, are you on track or off track with that thing that you said you were going to do this quarter? And if you're off track, how can we help get you on track? So I think accountability is another leadership principle that you have to have that. But the only way you can have accountability is if people know what you're wanting them to be accountable to, right? If it's really just like, hey, we're all focused on this big, vision of like, we're going to dominate the world and be the largest whatever. And, but like, what's the micro thing that has to be done this week and this quarter? And how does Catherine play a role in that? How does Nick, that's super important when it comes to leadership. And again, traction. I don't get paid for this, but.
And who is that?
Gino Wickman.
Gino Wickman. Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like taking that big goal. That's that big thing that you're all kind of striving for. That's sort of vague and sort of, whatever, but breaking that big goal down into smaller trackable goals. Yep. I think this guy must have listened to our goal setting episode on our podcast a month ago. Yep. Did this book recently come out within the last couple weeks? He must be a big fan. Yeah, he must be a big fan. But I think that's such an important part of, I just want to set that big vision, and if we just go towards that big vision, we'll get pretty far, Yeah. I don't know where we'll get pretty far. If we just keep pushing that big vision further and further, we're going to go somewhere, but you need to have real trackable goals, and that big goal needs to be defined by something that is, I don't know, there was a whole acronym for it, the SMART goal thing. It needs to be trackable,
specific, measurable, attainable,
realistic,
and relevant, and timely.
Yeah, there you
we
go. This guy knows it. Yeah. Obviously, we haven't implemented those exactly, but I think finding a balance between that big picture vision, like shooting for the moon, and we're going to be like the, global domination. I mean, we are a 6-person organization. We do have a director of global expansion.
That's right. See, you got it. Well, you know what, though? And I want to make sure like the listeners understand what I'm trying to say here. It literally doesn't matter if you're like a 2-person organization, like the principles still apply.
Yeah.
Like you may not have a need to have a 90-minute meeting every week where you talk through everything, but maybe it's just a quick 10-minute huddle every week. But if you're a 2-person operation, but the principles still apply. And literally when I sat down and first did it, we might as well have been a 2-person operation, because between my wife and I, we were wearing all the hats, doing all the things.
Yeah.
And so I don't want people to miss out on that piece, because it doesn't matter what size you are. Like, where do you want to get to, and what's relevant for you now, and continue to like implement those disciplines, and they become disciplines, habits. Exactly. Yep. And
I think the most important thing probably the most impactful thing of just setting aside like one day a quarter to do that thing is not setting the goal so that you have something trackable, but sitting down and saying, actually, now that I sit here and I have all day to talk about a goal for the next quarter, what is it? And I think people don't really, they have this vague, it's not something they could write down in a sentence of what they want to do with their business. But when you force yourself as the leader to like sit there and say, okay, like I know I have this, fuzzy idea in my head of doing great things, but what's the actual thing that we're going to do right now? I think that's really just a great exercise for the leader themselves to then disperse that to their team and say, this is where we're going. Here's an actionable step that we can do now to get to that, vision that's who knows how far down the road or how far away.
Yep.
So I think it's as much an exercise for the leader themselves as it is for the people that they're trying to lead.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How long have we been going?
50 minutes.
50 minutes.
50 minutes, yeah.
Too shabby. What else do we need to cover?
Yeah.
I think we've done a lot. I feel like we went deep on this episode.
Yeah.
We really did. And
do we need to make it a little more lighthearted? Can we tell some jokes? Or?
Do you have any
do
really
you have
good
one on
ones?
deck?
No?
Deck size matters. That's my joke on deck.
That's like when we were at Deck Expo, the company from Alaska had the shirts that said Big Deck Energy.
Yeah,
forward construction.
Yeah,
they just put out
cool.
a pretty cool video recently that I watched. So
that was pretty cool. But I think this is something that obviously you're not going to learn how to become a great leader just from listening to this podcast, but it's definitely a great start.
I think they absolutely will.
Yeah,
and I think this will be your most listened to.
I mean,
podcast.
well, it definitely
it's
will.
like a
That's
resource.
without a
They
doubt.
should save it.
I
think Chris laid it out pretty nicely for everyone.
What I was trying to do was like, I want them to keep coming back for more.
Right.
This
like more of this.
Obviously, this is all they need to become the perfect leader.
We'll come back together after you guys read Traction. We'll do a whole podcast on Traction.
Oh, God.
I'll ship you. I'll Amazon you. I typically will send Traction to several people. So
I'm gonna have to sit here and look you right in the eyes and say, we've read it. We
so
didn't implement any of it.
So I don't know about you. Are you much of a reader?
Big reader.
Are you?
Well, we talked about it on our last podcast actually, that I love books. I love being around books. I love buying books, and sometimes I love reading books. But
I'm with you.
Yeah, I like to read a lot, yes. But I also just like being around. I feel like buying the book, reading it, and then just like having those books around is something I really enjoy.
So I was a really good student in school, but it came kind of pretty easy for me. Like, I don't know that I read any books in high school or junior high for that matter. Like, I just it was so easy, and it was probably just the school sucked. But and so I don't think I really became an avid reader until I did 75 Hard the first time, which was like 4 years ago maybe. Yeah. And so but ever since then I've became addicted. So, and I do a lot of audiobooks, but I do enjoy just sitting down in the morning. That's part of my morning routine. Is I sit down, I read I don't know, 20-30 minutes, depends on what I'm reading, but I'm reading Iron Cowboy's book right now. James Lawrence, are you familiar?
Not a clue.
So he did
Sounds pretty awesome
50,
though. 100 Cowboy.
50 Ironman
Oh,
triathlons
yeah.
in 50 days. Did I tell you about this already?
I know. I've read. He's got a documentary.
Yeah, he's got a documentary. There you go.
He did one of them like on a treadmill and in like a pool or something.
Well, he had to do a lot. Yeah, they ran into weather issues and all that stuff and whatever.
I mean,
but,
it's still,
I mean, 50. His body was like brutalized. So, but then he came back and did 101 in 101 days. But he did those like in his hometown. But the 50 he did was in 50 states.
Yeah.
So like literally they had to caravan van state to state to state, and whatever the weather was, they had to do some stuff in the pool and whatever. But anyways, we got off topic there. Reading.
Yep.
Back to
That's what
reading,
you're reading. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I would have started when I was 24, not when I was 40.
You know
how far
I
I'd be.
Yeah, but it also it doesn't matter. I think. I mean, with reading, obviously, you can pick that up anytime. You should be reading. You should be reading. But I think people look at stuff like in their business or like, you know, making a huge transition to, you know, go a different route. They look at it like, you know, I mean, even I'm 33, but, you know, I have a tendency to think, as everyone does, like, I can't start over in no matter what capacity that is. People think it's too late, but I mean, you started your business 6 years ago, and it's like whether you're, I guess you were 38.
38,
yeah. So you're 38 in 6 years. What you've achieved now, you're 44. Still very young.
Still got a few good years.
Yeah. So like you could be 55 and still there's still an opportunity to change what you're doing, not just ride it out. And the amount of things that you can accomplish in something like 6 years is pretty amazing. So I just think that people get so stuck into, you know, I didn't start this when in my 20s or whatever. I guess I just got to ride this out. It's too late to start over.
It's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late.
But
Gary Vee would say it's never too late. So
yeah.
All right. So two things.
Yes.
And you can end it or I'm gonna end it. But so number one is like what's a big takeaway for you guys? Like what's something that you can share with the listeners from our conversation?
I have so much to work on. Oh my God. I've been doing everything so wrong.
That's so wrong.
Yeah.
You're so wrong.
I think for me it's just things that, you know, that I think, you know, because it's something in my business. It's something that deep down I already knew. Like I know that all that time planning is always going to pay off. But, you know, that's something that I don't bring up all the time in my own brain. It's like, but now we're having this conversation and it comes up again. Like I should be doing definitely way more planning and pull myself out of the busyness of the day to day or just of that day and realize that, you know, maybe we don't get as much done today, but within a week, we're doing things a lot better because we're not like, what are we doing today? Did we order those materials? I don't think so. So that is probably one of the biggest things for me, but also just, you know, I think being a leader, it's a lot of self-reflection and really evaluating like what's important to you and like the values that you want everyone within the organization to feel and like be true to that, not just say something that sounds good, that we value honesty and integrity, friendship and like, but really think like of what that is and reflect on it. I think that's something everyone can do better. And I mean, those were just two things that I pulled out, but short answer, everything. Everything I need to work on. We'll start with that book traction, but everything.
Yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah.
How about you, Catherine? Anything specific that stands out?
I think there's just so much value in these conversations because no matter, like, even if I implemented every single thing that you do, I would never be Chris Breen. So it's like, there's so much value
Not with that attitude.
Well, I think there's value in like having these conversations with a wide variety of people and just networking and we're in similar businesses, but we can take value in each other's advice. So it's just, there's so much value in just talking to a wide net of people. And sure. I can take a little bit of what you've said, a little bit of what other people said, implement it, and then it becomes our business. So yeah, I think there's a lot to learn.
The power of conversation. I think
Power of
that is where the
conversation.
magic happens, because it's, the answers that worked for you aren't going to work for us necessarily, but talking to you, it's getting us to ask the questions to ourselves and just start putting ourselves in a mindset of, just really reflecting on it. And that's like where it starts, just really analyzing like what's going on, where are we, where do we want to go. I just think that a lot of people don't think about that much. They're just sort of on busy autopilot, and I think just having these conversations, it puts me in a mindset to be more mindful of what we're doing on a day-to-day, and whether that's getting us closer to a goal or it's not, or if it's leading us down a path that we don't want to go down there. This isn't doing anything good for any of us. So that's where I think the power of these, this comes from. It's conversation.
Yeah. And there's just so much value in talking to lots of different people, because
But mostly
our
Chris.
business,
I mean, if I had to pick one type of person to talk to, it would definitely be Chris
But I'm
Breen.
saying like our businesses are not completely parallel. So it's not like I can be like, okay, I'm gonna do every single thing that he did.
Yeah.
And our businesses are structured differently, but it's like there's still so much value there in talking to you and seeing how you do things, and like what little things we can pull out and be like, oh, he tried this, we should try that.
Yeah. I also think that, like you said, it's hopefully this like opens up some eyes of some people and realize, wow, I do need to become a better leader. I do need to reevaluate things. And like you said, the way that you became a better leader, it wasn't listening to a 1-hour podcast. It was doing all these things to improve yourself. So hopefully people listen to this, and, hopefully I take some stuff from this, and then I say, you know what, I need to work on myself and improve all of these things, read these books, and really focus on self-improvement before I go and tell an organization of people, whether it's 5 other people like our organization or a larger group of people. You need to work on yourself first. And, that's what you said. That was the big transition. Change your mindset, and you worked on yourself. And
because that's the only thing you can control. Like, I can't control what Catherine does or Sean does. Like, I can control what I do. The neat thing that I'll maybe close with this for you guys is like the thing that I didn't realize that would happen with all the like personal work that I did was the almost like vacuum effect that I think that it had on the people around me. So like as I was doing and changing and creating and all the things, right, working on me, like it was almost selfish, like I was doing it for myself, but like it changed some of the things, like the way that my wife started doing things, like because I was doing these different things and my team. And so like, it's almost like, oh, well, I want to, feel better and be happier and, and stronger and whatever it is. But so there's like this intangible thing that happens when you work on yourself that you don't even realize. Like you could grow your business literally just by like being a better Sean, right? For you, not for your business, but like your business would, I know. Can you imagine a 10x Sean?
God, what? Amazing.
But
I would have 10 of me. That would be wild.
Well, I would be failing as a leader if I didn't. Like, one thing that I would encourage the listeners to do, whatever it is, like just, I hope that there was some value inside of this, but like write down or put it in your phone or something. Like, what's one takeaway, or send a comment to Sean or Catherine. Like, not one takeaway, but one actionable thing that you're going to do after listening to all this for the last hour. Like, is it one of the books you're going to read? Is it a meeting you're going to have with your team? Is it, like
you just wasted an hour listening to this. Now get to work.
What's
do
just one actionable thing?
Yeah.
Like, what's one thing that you're committed to? Write it down and send Sean a message after you do it.
Yeah.
And leave us a review on the podcast.
And maybe maybe the one thing you're committed to do is like sharing this with someone on your team. Maybe someone on your team needs to hear this, you know? So
and I think, what you just said, like, lead by example. So like you work on yourself, and it'll have a profound effect just by people seeing, like, wow, he's working out, he's reading every day, he's doing all these things. And the best way to lead is to lead by example. And you want everybody on your team to improve themselves and become a better version. So you kind of show them, and it's like, man, he seems like he's more happy and energetic, he's doing great. I guess, I don't know, maybe it's not a bad idea to start working out and reading and, all these things that we know are good for us, but we decide to not do.
Give ourselves permission to not do it.
Yeah.
So, and imagine having a team of and a culture of like true like growth and desire to to grow. Like that's when your business grows. Is when the people on the team grow. So
Yeah.
Well, I think we have.
I'm excited. This is.
I know. It really is. Like, it's
I
want
to go do something.
I know. I feel really pumped up, motivated, and I already know there's so much that I need to work on with as far as this topic goes. So I'm excited to, first off, read that book, and excited to hear what people think about this conversation. And like I said, leave us a 5-star review. But I guess that's it for this week. So till next time, this has been the Hardworking Happy Hour.
See you next week.